One finance team in this document, Tom speaks about, gets about 95% of the invoices through the door without a human touching them. Close to a full headcount saved. Another turned to 3 to 4 day reconciliation process. They've turned that into half a day. And Tom Hunter, who we're lucky enough to have on our pod today, has written this playbook on how Aussie finance teams are actually using AI, not just the LinkedIn hype spiel. You're talking about.
Actually, that's a good point. I don't know where.
So one thing I'd say, a lot of people like to be told that what you see is what you get. And mate, on LinkedIn, we see you with the colorful shirts, the energy, proper breath of fresh air. The first time I met you at this accounting and business expo in real life, obviously having known you for a bit before then, you had the colorful shirt on, same personality, same vibes. What's the secret behind the sauce, man?
It's just be you, right? Like, I think, and this kind of just ties into my whole philosophy as well with work and all that kind of thing. Like, work can be so corporate, and particularly recruitment can be so corporate, but I'm not corporate at all. And because, particularly when I've just started my own thing, I can be free to be me, right?
Yeah.
And people will like it and they won't, and that's okay. But I don't need everyone to like me. I just need my zone and lock into that and away. But I don't know, you just be you and things will all work out, right?
Good segue, actually, because you have gone and built your own thing. You backed yourself for starting your own biz. And that's one of the things that we try and talk about on the pod. It's obviously a lot of risks and stuff, and we want to address that at some point. But you've done the brave thing, which we want to encourage more Aussies to do. Tell us about the inspiration, the name, the idea behind it. You were saying you got a new website now. Recently, TomBot's live on that too, I've seen, which we'll come to in a bit.
TomBot's live. So TomBot's been going for a while now, but he's everywhere now. I'm just trying to shoehorn him into every single thing so I can just step back and then we can just let the agents and everything take over and I'll just sit somewhere else.
Yeah, nice.
But so the business. So what we're six months in now, which has been pretty cool. Like recruitment's surprisingly easy to start your own thing, by the way, so don't give me too much credit. So in the previous business, I was kind of running everything anyway, but just didn't have full ownership. So I was come to a point where I was like, I just might do my own thing. And I think in services, businesses as a whole, and particularly for recruitment, if you can win your own business and deliver on it, then you may as well just do it yourself
100%.
Because otherwise you're just paying a clip to someone else. And so I've always had a really strong interest in like the story behind businesses and like the growth, where they've been, where they're going, the people involved, all that kind of thing. And storytelling is such a critical part of recruitment.
Yeah.
And it's often not done well because either the individual or the recruiter isn't a good storyteller for one, but often it's really old school cliches like an industry leading business or market leading this. It's just throwaway nonsense.
Yeah.
Whereas I wanted to like celebrate the company and promote them as much as possible. And so it kind of leans into the platform that I've got with LinkedIn too, which is even more helpful.
Yeah.
But I've just always enjoyed telling the story. And so it's just really aligned with that. And luckily the domain was available.
You might have had to change it to a yarn recruitment or something. But honestly, I'll say one thing on LinkedIn. I love reading. I think you're a good writer and you're a good speaker.
Sure.
It makes it easy to read and understand you, but you are good at telling stories. And the other thing is, I think one of your traits is you give a lot of free things. So obviously this diet is something which we'll talk about, but you give free advice. We've had a couple of good chats where you've given good feedback on kind of the market. But I genuinely see you in LinkedIn as well, giving a lot of good feedback and good, advice. And I think that goes a long way. I obviously worked in recruitment for a bit as well. And you're right, anyone can go and do it. But I think you need the trust of the industry, which you've probably built up. So you need to give yourself some kudos as well there.
Sure.
Because you can't no one can just go up there and start their own gig without building that trust over a period of time.
Sure.
So you've got out of limb, man. So well done.
Yeah, I think the free value thing is like so important because like everyone's reciprocal, right? If you just keep giving and giving and giving without any expectation to receive, then eventually it's going to come back.
Yeah.
And most people are in their career for their career, right? They're not there for a year or two. So eventually, if you're playing the long game, it's always going to work out for you.
100%. Talking about stories though, what I want to understand, and obviously you're great at writing stuff, how does a recruiter end up writing an AI finance guide? Tell us about that process, what you
So,
went through and
so
how that's
I
come
would
out.
say that I more packaged it than wrote
Yeah.
it. So since AI is this like classic catchword that everyone feels like they need to be embedded into it and all that kind of thing, but majority of people aren't, especially in finance, because the data is so tight and risk associated. And like I wrote so I do a regular survey like every quarter about just certain topics, and I think it was what was it early 2025. I was asking about like where businesses are with their AI journey in terms of have they embedded something into the BAU, and it was
Mm.
only about 10% then.
Yeah.
And then when I ran it again at the start of this year, it was only like 15%. So it only
Wow,
gone up a
that's
little
really,
bit,
yeah.
but the majority had moved from like just starting and looking at it or testing and trialing to starting to implement something. And there's such a broad spectrum too, because you've got people in tech companies where the data infrastructure is really good, everything's digitized, and it's super easy to just plug into Cursor and build something. Whereas on the other end of it, there's like we just bought a house and our solicitors sent us paper invoices. They'd scanned it into a PDF. I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
wow.
the links don't even work. And they're like, but there's still like big businesses that operate in that way.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very hard to implement something like that when the business operates in like a really old school approach. And so I was like, well, I know that there's lots of people out there playing around with it and doing something, but they just don't know where to start. And when you've got so many options,
Mm.
you kind of get a decision paralysis, right? Like you don't know where to start. And so like I'll just speak to people that can tell me what they've done, and I'll just pull together the notes from the call, and then I'll just package it up into something that's usable. And it was really interesting just hearing how, because I talk to people all day about how they're using AI, but I never go into the level of detail where they walk me through the workflow.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool it's like hearing the perspectives on some people. Like one of the guys was saying about how he doesn't think he'll ever hire a financial accountant ever again. And he's super embedded into it though. Like
Yeah,
he's for
yeah.
this mining tech company.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's all in on it, and good on him.
Yeah.
But then there's like people that have just created like some like there's one about reconciliations where so you're not making it for the anomalies, you're making it for the 80% rule.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
everything at
yeah.
either end, you probably need a human in the loop to fix anyway. But for anything in the middle, it's like for reconciliations, often it's just like a match thing, and you just move on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rules associated, so you can automate it or plug in AI and all that. So it's yeah, it's an interesting time, but I think it's a bit overplayed where people are at with it. Like everything you read online, people think that they're like way behind because so and so's automated their whole finance function, and that's probably not true.
Yeah.
They've just automated parts of it, and they tell everyone they do.
We'll get to skill sets and stuff that people are looking for in this space in a second. But in your conversations that you've had with, I guess, these leaders across these different spaces, I
Mm.
see people are slower to adopt AI in business, but in their personal lives, have they communicated anything around how they're using AI personally? Because what I'm interested in understanding is there an actual gap in skill set that we're going to see? Because I feel like if people are using it personally, once business has adopted it, it's easier for them to start using it
Yeah,
as a part of a
sure.
business.
Yeah, I think accountants are generally would like to use more tech than they can, and more often than not, they are hampered by the business, whether it's like risk or data privacy or whatever. You can't just plug everything into Claude and away you go.
Mm,
But I think the majority of people are playing around with it, their personal life, whether it's like planning, like we did it for planning our wedding and
yeah,
for house hunting, and when I was looking for pest control stuff, or looking for that.
yeah,
So I think heaps of people are going to be doing similar things for like their own personal life, but it's being able to embed it into the business part, because you can't put everything into Claude these days. Like there's certain elements that you can and can't do, and I think how the biggest software companies sort of play into that is where they will probably catch up. But I think even stuff like Zero, super, super old school with their approach, and I don't know what they're doing, but they're losing market share pretty quickly
Yeah.
because of not being able to keep up with the change.
Mm. It's funny, isn't it? Because they're partnering with all these like Anthropic and things like that, but the user isn't actually seeing the evolution of the platform in line with everything else that's happening. So that's interesting as well. Your guide talks about, I guess, it dumbs it down for people in a way, it makes people feel safe. Because I read it and I was like, all right, sweet. This is easy for me to share with
Yeah,
people in my
sure.
network because
Yeah,
it's it's not a big mountain to climb. And it talks about you don't have to be good with AI. What is your read on someone that's good with AI nowadays?
I
And
think if
yeah,
good would be sort of like vibe coding a little bit, like just playing around to sort of build your own little things, because you can you can create like a pretty half decent MVP, right, of something that you can use just by talking to Claude Code. Like the amount of little things that I've just created on the side,
yeah.
and I'm not technical in the slightest. Like that TomBot thing was just made in ChatGPT and then into Claude and then into Replit. And like, there's a couple little things that I'm using on the back end for like automating content, like not content creation, but like automating it to YouTube or whatever, like stuff like that. Like you can do that very, very easily. So I think people that in the finance space specifically that are using it to make things just that little bit faster or just a little bit more integrated, because you can use something like Cursor just to connect something to Slack or then connect something to Zero or connect something to that. So you can create little things like that that just make your life a bit easier, even if it's not completely replacing the whole workflow.
Yeah. I think as well, if I just continue on the guide, one of the other things you have is AI gives you a first draft, never a final answer. Like a human always needs to stay in the loop. I think that's
Yeah.
it's great that you kind of flagged that, but also you broke down kind of the prompt in role, task, context, output, review. You've really simplified the whole prompt engineering process, but also getting people to think first principles about what they're trying to achieve. I just think about I was talking to a guy recently at our church who's like a techie guy and a software guy. I was talking about AI use, and he hasn't
Yeah.
really. It's surprising, but in the tech space, he hasn't really completely utilized it. And when I asked him why, he was saying, "Well, it can't do everything I can do. It still gets stuff wrong." And I think you talk about in the guide about solving the narrowest wedge. You know,
Yeah.
people might look at it and say, "Oh, it actually can't replace me, so it's not useful." But you're very specific in there about solving a specific problem, a narrow wedge. Is that another thing that you reckon is something that's preventing finance people because they don't actually understand process thinking maybe completely until you get
Sure.
to a leadership position where you start to think
Yeah. I
overall,
think
yeah.
there's this weird double standard with the expectation of AI too. Like, so if a person got things 98% correct, you'd be like, fantastic. But for AI, because it's 2% wrong, it's like, nah, I won't trust it.
Yeah,
It's no good.
that's right.
And I think there's just getting over that hump, that getting it to recheck itself, or like I've heard a few different people like create harnesses where like you create something in Claude and then ChatGPT like reviews it, and just little things like that to create it closer to the perfect product. And then for anything really, really ultra important, you do review it, and it just takes out all the legwork. There's even for stuff like if I'm creating content, it'll write it to 85, 90, 95% how I'd write it, but then just the final little check on it to, because that's where the magic is, right? Like the final little bit is the bit that makes it yours. And that's the bit that's important, rather than thinking I need to do everything from A to Z. You're just doing the bits that are important. But back to your point about the narrowest wedge, the if you're breaking specific processes down into really specific points, then that's super, super repeatable. And you can start to automate that, or you can use AI to make those things happen regular and regular, because you're not waiting on like it to pick up the additional context. You can just get something on repeat and constantly working. Because if you start to create really broad, long-winded tasks, then there's so much opportunity for it to get wrong or hallucination, or there's things that can mess up. But if you've got a really specific wedge and you get it repeatedly nailing that wedge, then you can kind of stack it up with another wedge and stack it up with another wedge. And before you know, you've got a full wheel of cheese. But like I think it's just narrowing and nailing that small segment, and then you can just perpetually build from there.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I think it's like what you're talking about is like talking to a junior accountant who has the ability of, like a robotic ability in terms of they can
Yeah.
do anything, but
Mm.
you're really stepping it out in a way to
Yeah,
them
sure.
instead of giving someone an overall scope because they might actually think through scope better than you at certain things, but you want to give them as enough information, step it out so you have the result
For sure.
that you want. Yeah.
I think there's a point now for experimentation and just trying out and seeing what works. And for me, that's the best way I learn, just by trying something out and seeing what works, making the mistakes. But right now, where businesses are so early in their AI journey, and leaders and executive teams are kind of open to experimentation a little bit to an extent, like now's the perfect time to just dive in and have a crack and see what works. Because
Yeah.
if you're 3 months down the line, you either don't have time to, or there's cost constraints, or some other wars going on, or some macro factor, like that you might not be able to. So like now's as
Yeah.
good time as any.
Best time is now. I'm going to give a quick highlights reel of the guide because I want people to read it.
Yeah, sure.
We obviously went through the month end close from a week to a couple of days. We have a process there for miscoded invoices. I thought this was pretty good, like a daily exception scan,
Mm,
which this prevents you having to manually go through reconciliations from 3 to 4 days to under half a day, working paper roll forwards, FBT reviews. Gosh, I hate this stuff. And if this saves me anytime, this is great. AP, 95% of invoices, I think you were saying, are untouched with the full head count. This saved them time, award rostering, and there's a couple of other things in there as well. So these are actually concrete examples at all levels of a finance team that people can utilize and maximize in terms of their ability. So great job putting it together, man. One thing I want to ask though, as a recruiter in the finance space, now obviously the the nice way to talk about this in a business is this is going to empower us to be more focused in terms of our work. But there is a real example in terms of potentially replacing certain parts of jobs or potentially
mm,
even large parts of roles that exist.
mm.
How
Yep.
does that kind of sit with you in terms of how you have conversations, but also in terms of the recruitment space? Do you see how your own industry will evolve as these roles continue to shift?
Yeah. So I think for in finance, I think like your transactional roles or your early stage roles will definitely be impacted. Like for example, the person in the example talking about automating AP invoices, I think they went from 3 or 4 AP officers and an AP manager to just 1 or 2 staff. So like
Yeah,
that's just
wow.
reduced there, and they're not huge either. So I think that will be impacted. I think there will be a need for reskilling. What that reskilling is kind of up to the individual. But the kind of mixed skill set is starting to become more and more prevalent. Like I saw someone talk about like the finance engineer or something the other
Mm,
day, and like that title might be new, but like techie accountants have been around forever, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
a lot of this skill set isn't new. It's just starting to lean into it a bit more. And
Mm,
so hopefully, like you said before, the empowering piece, it does give people time back to focus on the stuff that is actually important, which is managing stakeholders, like having commercial conversations, storytelling. And like the people that can do that well are the ones that stand out, because as everything becomes more tech enhanced, people want the human elements more.
yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because I'd say the last 5, potentially even more years, the industry has sought finance professionals that were very good with data. Like Excel's kind of a
Yeah, sure.
non-negotiable, but data in general,
Yeah,
understand data, understand how to pull data together, and they never really relabeled the finance role for data, but there was an understanding that it's a required skill set.
yeah.
And it's probably similar to where we're at now. Sure, roles could merge together, but it's a inherent skill set that you'll probably start to see as people expecting going forward, which is an interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it really does come back to the stage of where the business is, because like there's a lot of these tech companies where they are just absolutely baked into it, where they're using AI at every turn, and so someone in finance does need to start playing around with it. But then the businesses that don't have the infrastructure set up, or the companies are a little bit old school, particularly when there's a big inventory component or there's people on like the shop floor in the warehouse.
Mm,
Like those kind of roles make it a little bit harder to implement something. But I think being tech savvy is starting to be close to a
advantage, yeah.
non-negotiable. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's getting
Yeah.
very close to.
Do you ever get people call you up who want to hire roles and says, I want to get someone who's good with the AI or AI tools. Do you have that as a request?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's starting to become more and more prevalent, but I think the human stuff and the communication stuff is probably the number one. Like if someone can do all the AI stuff, but they're sitting behind a desk and aren't a great communicator, then they won't take them. I think that the AI piece can be taught with the right attitude and the right application, whereas the communication and getting out, getting out and speaking to people, able to negotiate, able to influence, persuade, those
Mm,
things are harder to teach. And like the ability to go and do that is harder to teach. So I think if you're doing that well, you're probably going to stand out compared to someone that's just an AI wizard.
yeah. Just lastly on the doc, Tom, it'll be non-accounting of me to not mention the risks part. You have
Yeah.
an emerging risks section. What's one that kind of you're reminded from the doc that if an accountant came to you or a finance leader came to you, what's a risk that you would flag as something that accountants should be thinking of? Because I'm the opposite of risk. I'm connect your phone to everything, try every tool, pull your
Yeah.
data to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm the last person to be talking about risk. So what's one that you would kind of make finance professionals be wary of?
I think it's just a data privacy thing, right? Like you just got to be careful, particularly if you're using client data
Mm,
that's not necessarily your business's data as well. Like be especially wary of that, because the last thing you want to do is get into some kind of lawsuit or something blows up. Like obviously your own business stuff is very important, but at the same time, if you're going to be liable for some
100%.
entity
Yeah.
external, like you want to be extra wary of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Finally, Tom, tell us about TomBot. How can people use it? What will it help them with? Tell us about the CFO Track Pod as well. That you, again, you're talking about stories. You've
Yeah.
had some good yarns with some, top of the range leaders across
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
finance space over the last year or so. It's coming on a year that you've had the pod.
About 7, 8 months. So
Yeah,
we're about
yeah,
to wrap up season 2. So,
yeah.
36 episodes across
Oh,
season
how's it,
1 and
man?
2. And then I've started recording season 3 now, and done a couple of episodes. So I like to, although it plays live, it's all pre-recorded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's so, I like to do them ahead of time. Otherwise I, end up just like chasing my tail, trying to get guests together. So if I
yeah.
have it organized, and I'm a bit
That's really
OCD
good.
with stuff like that. Just, yeah.
Man, we need someone like you with our pod because we get a bit lazy sometimes. Like TomBot, tell us about that. It's obviously started as a little. I remember, I think I still have it in my chat GPT as a bot in there. Is it still in there? I know it's on your website now.
It could be. It could be, yeah. So because I write a lot of content, and a lot of it's quite advice based on how to do this, where to go to
Yeah.
that. This is what you
Mm,
do here. And I was constantly speaking to candidates, and I would just be shifting them towards a post that I've written. Like, oh yeah, yeah, like I did a post on this. It'll talk you through it a little bit further, and it'll give you more context. I'm like, okay, great. And so this happened regularly and regularly. And so I was trying to figure out how to do it in a better way. And there was actually another recruiter, shout out to Ricky Burke. He created a similar one, but it was more around just giving advice for junior cyber security people. And so I thought, I could probably do something similar. And so I was playing around with it quite a bit in a custom GPT, and playing with like confidence scores and all this kind of thing, just to make sure that it's like actually giving the right advice, not just hallucinating and all that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I just fed it in heaps and heaps of my posts. And so there was, yeah, it took a while to pull together properly. It worked pretty well, but it just looked like crap because it was a custom GPT. And then when I started Story, I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind doing an update to TomBot. And so I was just basically plugged into ChatGPT, like, where do I build this? How do I build it? And it suggested Replit. And so just talking to it in normal language, just creating the same things again, and then like creating UX and making it look really nice and all that kind of thing. And it's come up really well. Like as and now I've sort of connected it to an OpenClaw agent at the back end. So it's a little bit slower, which is not ideal, but it's just easier to maintain then, because it's then connected to an Airtable, which it like scrapes for my own LinkedIn content. So it perpetually updates it. And so the idea is just making advice around your career, hiring advice, market sentiment, salaries, all that kind of thing as accessible as possible, because I'm not going to be available to answer these questions all the time. And people
Yeah.
might be thinking, oh, lying in bed, 10 p.m. It's like, oh, what salary should I be looking for?
Mm.
And so it's just trying to make things as accessible and like free advice, no gatekeeping, just making it easy to use so you can get the advice that you're looking for whenever you need it. And it's yeah, it's been really cool. It's like it's a great value add, and it's different too. And I like being a little bit different, and it makes me look like I'm super techie. Just made something on in AI, but it looks cool and it works. So I'm very happy with how it's going.
Yeah. I think you're one of those people that definitely, it's cool that you drink your own Kool-Aid, so to speak. I mean, the stuff that you're kind of preaching around adopting
Sure.
AI and stuff, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously implementing it in your own. And, you think about maybe 5, maybe even more years ago, if you're at this stage now where you're trying to scale, you're probably going out and trying to hire someone in admin
Yeah.
or another
For sure.
recruiter, but you've been able to optimize the tools and the
Yeah.
resources
Yeah.
at your fingertips, which is awesome. So yeah, it's great, man. Would love to have you back. I think next time I'll get the other 2 guys on as
Let's
well,
do it. Yeah. Regular
every
segment.
couple of weeks. But Tom Hunter, Story Recruitment, CFO Track Pod. You can find all the links. We'll put it in the description and comments as well. But I'm sure everyone in the finance industry, particularly in the Eastern Seaboard, know your face and name, mate. So thank you, mate. Thank you for coming
Thanks, mate.
on. And to
100%.
our audience and guests, if you've enjoyed the content, if you want to know more about Tom as well, we'll have his details in there. Thanks,
Okay.
guys. The
Thanks, mate.
countdowns for this week.